Hey guys, I'm David from Sunday Sounds, and welcome to this episode of Patch Stories, where we go into the process, ideas, and inspiration behind the sounds that we release here at Sunday Sounds. Here at Sunday Sounds, we focus on equipping and empowering worship keys players because that's who we are. I'm going to be talking today about a brand new instrument that we've added to Sunday Keys called the Family Piano. This instrument was created with samples captured from the piano that's in my parents' house and has been since before I was born. It's the piano that I learned how to play the instrument on, and the process of sampling it and turning it into a playable instrument for Sunday Keys was both super rewarding and very, very long and intimidating. So I can't wait to share a little bit more about this piano and especially with how it ended up sounding. Today you'll also get to see an interview that I did with sound designer and producer Jacob Maloney, where he goes into his sound design process behind a few of the new patches that he contributed to this update to Sunday Keys. Plus we've got tons of other new patches to share with you, so let's check it out. What makes any piano different from the next? Could be a technical difference, like the difference between a Steinway or Yamaha Grand, or the difference between a Grand and an upright. Or perhaps the room that the piano's in. Is it in a soundproofed recording studio or an internationally recognized concert hall? Perhaps the age of the piano. Sometimes it comes down to the story behind the piano. Like, this piano was used by Beethoven, or Paul McCartney, or Alicia Keys. Or, this piano survived a bombing during World War II and was lovingly restored by a master craftsman. Today, I want to share the story behind the piano you're looking at now. It's a simple story. This is the piano that's in my parents' house, the instrument I first learned to play, and where I first discovered the joy of music. We set out to sample and recreate a snapshot of this instrument in virtual form for you to use in Sunday Keys. In this episode of Patch Stories, let's go behind the scenes of the creation of Family Piano. We recorded this piano a couple summers ago. We did the sampling session originally. The amount of quiet that you need to actually capture clean samples is something that you really cannot overestimate. We recorded in the summer, so we had to turn the air conditioning off. It got up into the upper 90s during the sessions. And of course, we're in my parents' spare bedroom. We're not in a studio, so anytime a car would pass by or a neighbor would decide to mow their lawn, or one day it ended up with a huge thunderstorm, we were not able to record for large chunks of time. Now, we mic'd the piano with 3 sets of stereo microphones and then ended up picking the 2 positions that we thought sounded best. That was a close position. Took the lid off of the piano and sampled right up close to the hammers. And then the second position was up above, sort of behind the player position as a room microphone. Now, this is a small room. It's pretty dead, but the way that this piano sounds in this room is part of what I wanted to capture. So I really loved having that room perspective. Now, recording this many samples takes a long time. Editing this many samples takes even longer because every sample has to be analyzed, sorted into the correct velocity, any little audio repair or cleanup, every note gets denoised, pitch corrected if needed. We started out with over 30 hours of recorded audio and chopped that down to several hundred final samples that are present in Family Piano. But for a lot of the process, it just was this. One note at a time. So sample editing was a big part of the time invested into this process, but was also clearly really important to delivering a final product that actually felt, sounded, and played like the piano in my parents' house. Speaking of sample editing, I want you guys to meet Jacob Maloney. Okay, well, Jacob, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. You are in the UK. Where are you at in the UK?
So I'm currently in Devon, but I also study in Leeds. So
folks, Jacob here is an awesome sound designer who we've had the opportunity to collaborate with for several sound libraries now, a few series of sound libraries at Sunday Sounds. And now you contributed 4 new patches here for this update of Sunday Keys. And they're all what you call swarms, which I love that term. So for folks watching, it's sort of like a sound bed, sort of like a pad, but there's all of this sort of motion and energy that sometimes really goes somewhere, but other times it just sort of stays in this brooding. I can really hear like the film score influence in them. So do you happen to remember where some of those sound sources came from? I'm assuming like String Swarm sounded like maybe a violin or a viola.
Yeah, so String Swarm is kind of a combination of a few sessions of violin players. So it kind of transitions from different players and different playing styles as you hold down the key.
And then there's a Taped Swarm.
Yeah, so Tape Swarm is my DX7. I think it's one of the piano patches. Run through Behringer. It's got a little echo machine. It sounds quite like rubbish, and kind of tape is what I wanted to go for.
Yeah. One question I had specifically was, is the sample or the sound source from the Seaside Swarm, is that actually like sampled sea or ocean noise? You mentioned that earlier.
No, it isn't. It should have been. That would be cool. That's actually from an old piano that's at my church.
Oh, nice.
Upright. I think it's a Godfrey. So that's recorded on an iPhone. And it's just like me riffing on octaves and then through a load of effects. So it's kind of an old honky-tonk kind of sound, but then put through lush reverbs and stuff, which hopefully sounds quite...
Well, Jacob, I think people are really going to like these sounds. Thank you for letting us include them in this update to Sunday Keys. And if folks want to check out some of your other collaborations with us, we'll put links in the description of this video to all of your sound libraries, especially the Mirror series of sound libraries you've done with us that has a ton more of these types of found sound and organic swarms that we've included. So, hey man, thanks for your time and thanks for collaborating with us at Sunday Sounds.
No worries, thanks for having me.
Okay, so back to the topic of pianos. You might be asking yourself, well, what's the difference between this piano and any other? Why is it important to have several different piano options available to somebody? And I think that's a great question. There are tons of awesome piano plugins out there already. The purpose of the family piano was not to create something that had never been done before or create something at a higher level of detail or anything like that, but it was rather to specifically capture the feel of this piano that was meaningful to me and hope that the meaning of the instrument itself translated to you. In regard to the differences between pianos, let's start off with a little bit of comparison here just so you can hear the difference. This is the stock Steinway piano that is a part of Mainstage itself. It's a really clean, sort of pure sounding piano. There's not a lot of body, not a lot of, I think, nuance or character. It's a good production piano for that purpose because it's really clean. But in terms of capturing the feel of a piano, I think there's more that can be done there. So this is the Sunday Grand, which is one of the custom pianos that's a part of Sunday Keys. This is a grand piano, all custom sample based. It sounds like this. So a nice big grand piano sound. There's a ton of body, sort of the resonance of the piano that's captured in this instrument that I think makes it really feel big. It's also really bright. And it has a nice powerful low end. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the Sunday Upright, which is the other sort of sister piano that's a part of Sunday Keys itself. This is a really muted, sort of fragile sounding upright piano, really the exact opposite of the Sunday Grand. Really nice character in the higher register. But it stays thin, kind of the whole range of the instrument. So sort of what I would describe as a character piano. It can't carry any song, but it can carry certain types of songs really, really well because of how delicate and fragile it sounds. Now we have the family piano. To me, this sits sort of in between the grand and the upright in terms of power and intensity. It's definitely warmer and more full sounding than the upright, but nowhere near as big or as bright as the Sunday Grand. The family piano is voiced as a soft piano. We have 5 velocity layers, but you don't reach what would be full intensity forte playing even at the highest velocity levels. This lets you play the instrument and have it feel sort of delicate and a little bit gentler, a little bit softer, no matter what. So this is what family piano sounds like. So for me, as the kid who grew up listening to this piano, it really does sound and feel familiar to me, which I think is just the coolest thing. But in terms of the dynamic range and the level of expressiveness, the amount of space that this piano takes up, I feel it's a really great compromise between the Sunday Grand and the Sunday Upright. It has this really beautiful character up in the higher notes as well. And then this sort of warbly short bass that's very common in console pianos because the string length for these bass notes is quite short. Now, once we had the core family piano instrument created, we created several different voicings of the family piano itself that involved different reverb settings, different compression settings, and then also a really cool Lo-Fi preset. The default preset is the room preset. Here I've dialed in a reverb that actually sounds quite similar to the room that this piano is actually in. So it's very short, just a little bit of bright early reflections. So this is sort of the true family piano experience, but there's several other presets as well. This one is called Lo-Fi. It captures that sort of lo-fi electronic music piano sound really well. Lots of pitch modulation, really cool warbling. And then we also have a compressed preset for family piano. This nails that sort of House Fires or Bethel without words sort of vibe. All right, so now that we've got this piano created, how might you use this in a worship service as you're building patches inside a main stage or in Ableton Live? Well, like I said, this kind of sits for me in between something like the Sunday Grand and the Sunday Upright. So what I've done here is I've combined the new family piano instrument with a couple other presets. One of them specifically is this Salem reed organ. Now, this is a new sample-based patch that we've also just added to Sunday Keys, featuring samples captured from my old reed organ that I purchased 10 years ago from a thrift store in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where I used to lead worship at a church. So it's called the Salem reed organ because of that. It's got this really cool sort of harmonium, sort of faux organ sound with this really cool panning effect. And we've also independently sampled the key click of the instrument. So you can adjust that here. And it's also velocity sensitive. So if you play at lower velocities, you're not going to hear it. If you really dig in, then you'll hear a little bit more of that effect. You can adjust that to dial it in so it sits exactly where you want it in the mix, or you can take it out entirely. But we wanted to give you that level of detail because that's a part of the original instrument that was sampled. So let's look at the combination of the family piano, this reed organ, and then I've grabbed one of the custom string articulations, the Sunday strings. This is the swell full strings voicing from Sunday Keys, and then also a sub bass. So with all of these layers together, we end up with something like this. So this type of patch design really leans into that acoustic setting, the living room type of worship set, that stripped down vibe that so many of us have had to rely on at some point during the last year of COVID-19. And I love this combination of sounds. This was really popularized by bands like Bethel, some of Jesus Culture's stripped down sets. You've got the really real sort of close feeling of the piano, and then that harmonium sort of sound from the Salem reed organ preset. The strings and the sub bass are just a little bit of extra texture. If you wanted to, you could make this a little bit more ambient. You could add some delay here. We'll add a dotted eighth delay to the piano. Tap my tempo in here. I'm going to add an octave to the piano as well. Bring up the amount of that room reverb. Maybe a little bit of reverse delay. I think the most important component about nailing this kind of patch is the sense of space feeling appropriate. Even with those ambient effects added to the family piano, because of the character of the instrument itself, it still feels rather close. It doesn't feel like it's in some giant concert hall, no matter what you do. And that reed organ instrument being relatively dry and just sort of moving back and forth in the field gives it a sense of motion without this sort of epic feel. Now let me give you a couple other patch ideas or how you might implement these kinds of sounds. This next one uses the Disaster Scene patch, which is a new pad in the March update, as well as the LoFi version of the family piano and a couple of other Sunday Keys instruments. This is the song Forever. I'm going to play it in the key of C, and just notice how this patch takes the sound or the feel of the song into a new place. All of the instruments in this patch sort of have that lo-fi vinyl vibe to them, and it's a totally new spin on a really familiar arrangement that's piano driven. All right, one more here using the patch Shine On, which is new in this update to Sunday Keys. This is a take on The Blessing. We're going to play this in the key of B. This is a little bit more of a standard meat and potatoes sort of vibe for this song, but I wanted to use this example to show that you don't need a huge grand piano, even for really powerful piano-driven songs like this one. So I've got the Space preset of family piano, a new pad called Prince Pad, the Celeste Swarm, which is a new sound bed that was brought to this release like we talked about from Jacob Maloney, the Retro Bells Sunday Keys preset, and again, a sub bass in the extra section. Now that you've gotten a little taste of some of the new instruments in this update to Sunday Keys, I want to give you a taste of all 10 of the new layered patches, and then all of the individual instruments that are a part of this update. Check it out. Now here's a look at all of the individual instruments that have been added to the March update to Sunday Keys. Alright guys, well that wraps up this episode of Patch Stories. I hope that you're enjoying getting to hear the stories and process behind some of the sounds that we release. here at Sunday Sounds. If you're a Sunday Keys owner, all these sounds are now available to you, so check your email for a download link. If you're not a Sunday Keys user yet, all of these sounds are now included in your purchase, so there's a link in the description if you'd like to learn more about the Sunday Keys template. I'm David from Sunday Sounds. Thanks for listening to these stories. Have a great day. You hold these. You push them over and over like this.